Hello and welcome. This is Personal Ascension Self-Mastery Training, and we are currently at Module 3. So, Module 3 will be exploring the Solar Plexus Chakra, our masculine aspect, the mental body, the I am presence, and our strength in our own personal power. And of course, there is the interwoven aspect, very similar to Module 2 with the paternal ancestral lineage. So welcome. Thank you for being here, and I hope that you enjoy this module. So let's begin. So let's have a quick overview of what we will be going through for this module. So we're going to have a quick review over the past module and just a bit of a reflective piece on how we've moved through the previous module and gone with our meditation and our exercises. And then we'll be kicking off and looking at exploring in depth the solar plexus chakra. So this will be the completion of the 3 lower chakras once we move through and complete or finish this module, which ties into the lower, more third dimensional aspect of our energy centers and how they relate to the physical world. And as we move through into the next module, we'll be jumping into the heart and starting to play with the higher frequencies. So that's where it always gets quite vibrant, shall we say. We'll also be having a look at the mental body, which is an extremely important component as we move through our ascension process, and being able to minimize mental debris, being able to look at things like limitations of our thought process, our mental process, and how it has a direct correlation with, as we can clear through that, activating into the higher frequencies and being able to access high levels of consciousness that are stored or encoded within us, but also that we can access as streams of divine inspiration, if you will. We'll be having a look at some of the self-evaluation questions prior to commencing this module. And then we'll be going through the solar plexus clearing and activation process, which will be recommended to work through each day as we move through this particular module to the next. We'll be looking at our divine masculine energy, the mental process through our ascension as we move through it. I know that this is a sticky point, and this is one that can really be quite a challenge for a lot of people. I find that often when people start to activate into the energetic process of the ascension, I see it as like a cascading in or a movement in. So when we look at the energy field, we've got the obviously we have the outer layers, but we've got the mental body, the emotional body, and the physical body. And so what I noticed first is, when we talked about the awakening process, then as it moves into the ascension process, the awakening process, when it is very much information and intellectual based, that's the part that starts to then unravel, and then it starts to move into more of the emotional processing, and then it comes into the physical body. And this process happens multiple times. It's not just a one-off occurrence, but of course each time we move through these levels and layers, we get to deeper insights, deeper access within ourselves. So combined with this module, we'll be looking at empathy and sensitivity quite in depth. I feel like this is a good portion that's highly connected to the solar plexus chakra, where we start to receive a lot of information in that center, and that's where it can get a lot of very clogged, very clouded, and very it can get quite stagnant when we start to really feel into our sensitivity and empathy. We can store a lot of other excess energies that don't belong to us. We'll be going through a process of removing mental programming to reclaim our inner knowledge and unlock our personal power. Then we'll be looking at the topics such as divine action, and then moving into understanding sensitivity, or sensitivity as our superpower, as I like to look at it. And then we'll be finishing off with going into a third process, which is feeling into other people's energy as an exercise to have a greater sense of our own energetic boundaries, and how we can sometimes, as we come into heightened levels of sensitivity, how we may sort of morph and blend into other energies, and not necessarily knowing or understanding, or not being fully consciously aware of that, and how that can impact holding our own personal power, and really being firm within that. So we'll go into that process of, I'm going to extend or expand this process a little bit to its original technique, whereas I will be offering the opportunity for you to feel into inviting someone else into your energy field, just to notice the difference, and then, step out. And then I might even go through the process, just expanding on a little bit more of opening up and feeling into the collective energy, and then allowing it to step out, just so we can have a clear definition of understanding what's ours and what's not ours, which can be so beneficial when we're going through chaotic or energetically turbulent times, to really be able to come into our center and hold our own frequency, and being, of course, in our own personal power. And then finally, we'll be wrapping up with a Q&A if there are any questions that come up. So make sure you write them down as we move through them, and we can address any questions that may be related to any of the topics that we cover for this module. So let's get started. So just taking a pause for a moment, and coming into a bit of a reflection of the week that has gone, in terms of moving through the previous module, and just, asking the questions of, were you able to keep up with regular daily techniques? Were you able to work with the clearing and the activation of the sacral chakra, and perhaps even the other techniques or processes that we move through for module 2? If not, why was that? Was it a challenge for you to move through? Were uncomfortable or difficult things coming up? Did you feel that it perhaps wasn't necessary to go in that deep? It may be quite personal. Maybe you felt that just going through it a couple of times was enough for now. Or maybe you're still kind of working through module 1 and still working through the base, or using them interchangeably. So just taking some time of past reflection. And as you do so, perhaps notice what shifts perhaps came up as you moved through it. What were some of the observations that you were able to assess, both internal and external? I know for me, as we worked through the previous module, it was a deeply emotional process. I know that as the time of this recording, we're kind of in between eclipses, so it was kind of cleverly designed to move through. I always get given dates of when to record these lives, and it always sort of ties in with a bit of a collective theme. So I noticed for myself, there was a lot of internal emotional processing that was kind of being moved through as the sacral chakra and the emotional body. And so do that's another question that you can pose to yourself is, do you feel the need to continue working with the sacral chakra, or the energy work in helping move some of the emotional energy through? Or are you feeling ready to kind of really shift and move through into the next stage? And of course, the final question is, what questions may have come up around your own personal process and where you're working, and how possibly do you see that reflected in the outside world? Often we can see reflections in collective themes, And I know that as we move through the sacral chakra and in between, as this is recorded, the eclipses, there's been a lot of collective themes highlighted around relationship-based themes coming up for a lot of people. So that may have been something that you're moving through or something that you have been able to observe. So just sort of taking a bit of a checklist of um, what you've moved through and potentially how much you may have grown or been able to access deeper levels within yourself through this previous module. And if not, why not? Do you feel like you're at a really good place within the sacral? And is that a congratulatory, a celebratory, or to look at yourself and congratulate yourself on how far you may have moved in your process so far? So let's click over and let's have a look at our solar plexus chakra. So this one I feel is one that people tend to have a lot of issues with. If it's in terms of the top three, I would say the solar plexus is one where a lot of people can hold a lot of dense energy. So our solar plexus obviously is the yellow color, and we've got our chakra, man or woman here to depict where it's located. So it's in the center of the stomach area. Its element is fire, and some of the attributes that are connected to the solar plexus chakra is our confidence, our self-esteem. I believe that it's connected to our core, our masculinity, our masculine energy, our personal empowerment. And it also has these highlighted elements of being able to connect in with our own internal knowledge and wisdom. When I look and do energy work or sessions related to focusing on the solar plexus chakra, often what I see when there are paternal patterns that arise in an energy field, it's often held within the solar plexus chakra, being that masculine component. And things like not wanting to be seen or visible, not having the confidence to fully step into power or hold that power, and conflict within sort of personal identity can come up a lot in the solar plexus chakra. So you might, as we talk about this, you might start to feel into that center and how that feels for you in this moment. So we're going to have a look at some of the related aspects to the solar plexus. So if we're looking at the physical body and the organs associated with it, we're looking at things like the respiratory system, the diaphragm. Of course, the digestive system is a huge one. So our stomach, the liver, the gallbladder, kidneys, the pancreas. You can see that it takes in a lot of the organs in that area. The adrenals, the spleen, the intestine, and of course our middle to lower back and connecting into the sympathetic, sorry, I can't get my mouth around that at the moment. Sympathetic nervous system. So you can see that there's a whole heap of our organs that are connected to the energy of our solar plexus chakra. So if our energy isn't clear in that center, we can have less function in some of those, especially one that sort of sparks to mind in terms of what some of the denser or reversed energies can be in the solar plexus is anger, and that directly I see connected to the liver. So when the liver's not functioning properly, it can have outbursts of anger, and that can be energy that has been stored in the solar plexus chakra related to feeling unempowered and feeling suppressed. So just making some correlations there. So physical symptoms that can arise in the connected to the solar plexus chakra is anxiety is a huge one. Of course, the discomfort of physical bloating, digestive issues, stomach aches and cramping is something that I find that when we're churning and processing through solar plexus related issues, or even mental overstimulation or mental limitations, and sort of mulching through some of that energy, we hold that there in our stomach, and that's where we can feel the physical discomfort. So let's have a look at some of the energy patterns or distortions that can come up in a lower frequency bandwidth solar plexus and mental body as well. So looking at more 3D related patterning that can come up, that can be very heavily entrenched in the solar plexus. So as I was mentioning, overly aggressive, domineering, controlling, blaming, arrogant, manipulative, power hungry, stubborn, hyperactivity, excessively ambitious or competitive can be some of the signs when the solar plexus is in its kind of distorted frame and overactive. So when we look at it sort of in its underactive mode or not, when I see this, just to give you a visual representation, when I first started doing body work or energy work in person, I would test up the chakras with the pendulum and basically hold the pendulum right in the energy field. And the pendulum would then start to spin or rotate in relation to how the energy center was open, active, underactive, or non-existent. And how that was shown is if it's overactive, it would be normally, I would say the chakras should be probably in that size. So I'm just trying to think, what's that? 2 hands. I have pretty small hands, but if we clasp our hands together to make a sphere about that size, an overactive solar plexus would be spinning out much larger, much wider, I should say. And underactive will show signs of being much, much smaller or waving back and forth and not having any rotational movement. So underactive signs of the solar plexus is low on energy, weak will, poor self-esteem, very passive, sluggish, fearful, having poor self-discipline, emotional or physically cold, having or holding a lot of victim mentality, blaming others, unreliable, and also having poor physical digestion can be some of the symptoms of an underactive solar plexus chakra. So of course, as we move through this module and move through the transitional phase of breaking down old belief patterns, old energy that we may have been holding in our solar plexus for a very, very long time, and setting the tone to bring in higher frequencies, a lot of these patterns may start to come up or be highlighted as we move through breaking down those templates and letting go of that old energy. So keep in mind that any energy work that's highly concentrated on a particular area can bring things really up to the forefront as we're going through that process, of release. So as we go through and transform into a higher frequency solar plexus chakra, these are the things that we'll be looking to have active within that higher frequency. So feelings of tranquility and inner harmony, self-acceptance is a huge one. Respect, respectful, I'll take out the respect for nature and emotions of others. So being really respectful of personal boundaries and how we interact with other people. Feelings or sense of unity within ourselves and also the world around us. Being responsible, reliable, confident, spontaneous. I also associate the solar plexus with having a good sense of humor and being able to meet our challenges daily. So having confidence in making decisions, being really decisive, and having a deep experience of, having a deep experience of having that balanced solar plexus chakra allows us to open up and start to access ancient knowledge and wisdom through our own soul's experience. And this can start to come through having a strong sense about knowing thyself, which then in return we start to have a better sense of our own self-image, self-esteem, of course, being empowered and balancing our masculine energy, feeling confident and in control. So there, I guess that's the framework that we're looking to access and to reach as we start to move through bringing higher frequencies online for our solar plexus chakra. And of course, thinking about how that filters through into our mental um, body and being able to move beyond limitations of programming, limitations of thought, and how we view ourselves in that mental realm. And of course, also helping balance the solar plexus chakra can then start to bring in a balance within our physical body as well. So having balanced digestion and things like that. And it can work hand in hand. It can highlight wanting to bring in more balanced diet or looking at things like gut health. And I will highlight that a little bit more as we move through. I think that's a very, very important piece when working through the solar plexus chakra is looking at the physical component of our gut and our gut health, because as we start to clear and balance and have good nutrition, good gut health, that then lifts or can lift a lot of heaviness or brain fog, clearing out some of the lower level thought process and patterns, and in return allowing us to access higher states of consciousness. So just taking a pause as we absorb a lot of that information, you might find that there's some ahas or things coming up for you, thinking about your own solar plexus and maybe things that have been trapped or looping in there, things that you can expand on or start to clear. So just pausing for a moment. I'm just going to grab my water. Give me a second. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at the mental body. So I associate the mental body directly with the solar plexus chakra. So it extends between 10 to 15 centimeters outside of our physical body, and it is an extension of the emotional body. So we go physical body first, etheric body, emotional body, and then mental body, and they sort of layer like Russian dolls, if you will, layer upon layer. The color and appearance really fluctuates depending, going from person to person and depending on where they're at in their own particular process. And it can change depending on what they're working through at any given moment. So, um, varying shades of yellow primarily is the mental body. And if a person has a high vibrant field, vibratory field, it can be a very bright yellow. Um, Makes me think of very, when I started to being able to see the energy fields. Um, there's a cool process that you can do if you wish, which is just working with deep breathing techniques and working with another person and being able to latch in to be able to see the energetic field. Basically, all you need is preferably a white wall or no sort of background um, clutter, if you will, and just having two people facing one another. And as you go into deep rhythmic cycling, cyclical breaths, I should say, so inhale for 4, hold for 2, and exhale for 4. And being able to hold your eye just above the top of the person's head and just staring into that space. And as you do that for a good couple of minutes, you can then start to see a person's energy field. And I remember when I first did this, one of the first things that was highlighted was this kind of very vibrant yellow energy field. And I was like, oh, wow, I was seeing someone's mental body. And as I was staring, it was incredible experience. It kind of moved, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't think the energy body moved so drastically. And then all of a sudden I saw someone's spirit guide who had like a yellow scarf wrapped around the head sort of moved to the front. So I guess sharing that is a cool exercise. And if you take that um, exercise a little bit further and a little bit longer, you can ask for a guide or a being to kind of step forward, and that can be an extension of that technique. But anyway, I digress a little bit, but there's something that you may want to try out if you have someone who will engage and be a partner in that exercise. But going back to the mental body, if someone's energy is quite vibrant, quite clear, uncluttered, it would be very, very bright. If someone's processing a lot of mental stimulation, a lot of lower negative thought patterns, it can come up as a really murky, almost green, yellow-like color. And that would indicate a lot of, yeah, as I said, negative thought processes or going through a process of clearing out negative states through their mental body. One thing I love about the mental body is as we go through the process of clearing this energy field, this is where it can flick into a blue colored frequency. And that is connecting with the soul's knowledge and wisdom. And there's a direct connection to the mental body and the pineal gland, which is located in the brain. So as the gland gets stimulated or activated, it can trigger high level of higher consciousness, memory, information, especially it can really reawaken past life knowledge, as I refer to as ancient knowledge and wisdom that we've mastered, over many, many lifetimes. And depending on the individual, when I say mastered over many incarnation cycles, it can be earth-related incarnations, but it can also be off-earth as well. So it will depend on where the soul has journeyed and what they've experienced as to what memories can be stimulated and activated. So going into the pineal gland, and obviously we'll work with this a little bit later when we're working with the third eye and the higher level chakra system. when people go through Kundalini awakening, that can awaken the pineal gland, and it has within it a substance that is likened to LSD. And actually, if you look at some of the stimulant drugs like acid LSD, they are a what do you call it? A synthetic version of what we naturally have um, in our pineal gland. But of course, because of the weighting down of trying to dumb down society and putting fluoride and pollutants in our water and in our food, that does have an impact in trying to calcify the pineal gland so that we can't access that. But often when people go through um, an activation or a Kundalini activation, that's where people can talk about the popping in the pineal gland. And I believe that that is when the release of that chemical starts to come out, and that pineal gland is going through the process of decalcification. I also believe that that is a natural, when people go through cleansing and clearing and high levels of energy work. I do associate like a chronic nasal drip sometimes as part of clearing out of the decalcification process. That's just a little side note there. So as a person goes through activations or the pineal gland comes online, even if it's just slightly, that's when it's going to trigger into the mental body as well. And then accessing our ancient soul memories start to come flooding through. We might have just flickering images, or it might be in high definition, you know, depending on person to person and their chosen experience, if you will. Okay, so the mental body stores a lot of thoughts, a lot of conditioning and beliefs about ourselves. But this can also then impact or be projected onto others and how we envision the world. See the mental body as like a filter. So whatever we're holding in that space that has been accumulated, obviously that's the lens that we're going to be viewing um, other people and external circumstances, situations. So as we go through the process of clearing that, we're going to see a different vantage point, a different view, worldly view, or be able to see people in a different way. So the thoughts that we hold when we're overthinking create or can ingrain patterns within the mental body, and it can be pushed down onto the emotional body and then into the etheric body. So think about if we hold a predominant negative thought about ourselves and we're constantly overthinking, overplaying, repeating that pattern, it kind of gets wedged or deeper and deeper ingrained, and it gets pushed down even further and further. So as we have looping thoughts, whatever those thoughts or belief patterns are, then that's going to impact our emotions and how we feel. And then it's going to impact our physical body, which could play a role in um, illness or sickness, or having that just more deeply ingrained into our physical reality. Um, so just sorry, I'm just having a look at my notes. Yeah, this is how negative thought process become really strong emotions, and then physical ailments. So yeah, just so the opposite can occur by clearing our mental body. This can have a positive flow on effect into our emotions and then into the material world. So if we're re being in charge of our thought process, of our consciousness, and having healthy input within our mental body, then that's going to feed into having positive emotions and then change our physical reality. So I put in just another sidebar note down the bottom here. I would say 9 times out of 10, when there is attachments or entities, the most common place that they will latch into or reside is the solar plexus and the mental body. And this is where people can go through things such as intensive, intrusive thoughts, suicide idealization, because as we're impacted by lower level vibrations or entities, these tend to thrive on sort of um, accessing or feeding off our own energy, and the lower level energies of emotions is what's highly desirable. So by residing in that space of our solar plexus, it's really impacting our thoughts and then our emotions. I've found numerous times where people have been very, very depressed, borderline suicidal, going through just a clearing of the solar plexus chakra, and releasing some of that energy or attachment can completely shift a person's energy. So just something to keep in mind, that not all of our thought processes are our own, and just that's something to have an inquiry of if you are going through um, quite a stint of that, or something to be reflective of. It's something that often we overlook, and we can internalize a lot of negative thoughts or intrusive thoughts and not even sort of asking, are we being impacted? So some of the techniques that we'll go through in this module of looking at clearing excess energies, or being able to feel into other energies and decipher the two, can be really, really helpful. So here we have our main star of the show, Chakra Man or Chakra Woman, just depicting the mental body. And this one is actually probably more literal in terms of the color, but as I mentioned, as we move through, depending on how much clearing or processing, it can have different shades of yellow. And of course, if it goes into the higher octave of really working with the higher level consciousness, it will change from that of the yellow into more of a bluish color. So just maybe as you're looking at that, you might just pause for a moment and just perhaps feel into your own mental body and see if you can just get a sense or an awareness of how it is situated in this moment. If it's quite cloudy or foggy, or what color or colors is it presenting? Even if, as I just tune into my own right now, I can see that there's a lot of processing happening. I can see just interesting scattered energy that's kind of trying to process or make its way out. So yeah, just have that little tune in or check in with yourself, just to feel in. And one thing that I often notice, I just saw a notification come through that there's a minor geomagnetic storm in progress, which we've had a lot of over the last few days. I find, just in relation to the energetic field and space and solar weather, when we go through waves or bursts of CMEs or solar flares, it tends to directly impact the solar plexus chakra. I noticed in the earlier stages of clearing, that's where high levels of anxiety can start to arise, as it's almost like it tries to activate or stimulate higher energy or consciousness coming into that area in particular, and also the higher chakras. And then as you start to go through more clearing, I find that that's where It's less anxiety and more inspiration when the solar flares go off. But as the arrival of the geomagnetic storms and the solar winds start to kick up, that's where I feel that there's a lot of energy that starts to rattle like debris out of our energy field. And I see this a lot, especially through the mental body, is the one that seems to be the most uh, impacted with geomagnetic storms and solar winds. So that may be something to keep on your radar if space weather is something that you follow, and just notice the trends and patterns within your own process, because obviously everyone's slightly different. That's just been my own personal observation and that within others over the years. So keeping that in mind. So as we kick off this module 3, here's some of the self-evaluation questions that we can go through. So this will be outlined in the workbook that you can download from this module, and you can go through and print it off, or you can use your own journal, or it might just be your own internal mental checklist. But I do highly recommend to write notes, because I feel like the more you can be an active participant in this, the better you get from the work itself. So the first question is, do you feel a strong sense of mental clarity and focus within your life? So just on the sliding scale, 1 being a weak sense of connection to clarity and focus, excuse me, or 10 being really strong, um, sharp precision of clarity and focus. So the second one can be a little bit tricky for some, but do you have a strong connection with your father? Obviously highlighting the masculine component, or father figure, I should say, because that might be a relative term to depending on people's circumstances, but father or father figure. And what is that connection? Is it really strong? Is it really weak? And then the third question we have is, do I feel confident, or do you feel confident within who you are? Well, that's a bit of a mouthful. So a strong sense of self, or personal identity. And then question number 4, we have, do you feel confident and connected with your own masculine energy? And the final question is, do you feel self-assured with the actions that you take within your own life? Just having that reflection piece of, remember, this is your own self-evaluation. No one will be checking this. So be open and honest with yourself as you can be, and know that there's always room for improvement. That's why we're here, right? Okay, so just allowing that piece of reflection. And this is something perhaps that you want to come back to um, in the workbook and throughout the week. And of course, in the workbook, these self-evaluation questions appear twice. So once before the daily observations, and once again right at the end of the module. So you can have a look at how you may have expanded throughout uh, the week, or going through this module, however long it takes for you. So additional exercises that can be applied while moving through focusing on the solar plexus chakra Of course, we talked about wearing or immersing ourselves in color. So I know yellow is a tricky one. I probably own myself one piece of clothing that is yellow in my entire wardrobe. But it might be just envisioning yourself in that color too. So we don't have to get super technical, but wearing yellow or consciously immersing ourselves in that color. Eating yellow fruits and vegetables, so obviously bananas, lemons. I'm just trying to think of. I can see the vegetable. It's a round one with jagged edges. Can't think of the name. Um, Capsicums, and yeah, just highlighting being able to bring in that color as much as we can within our lives. Another thing that may be really empowering is to taking time in solitude, being able to drown out some of the excess mental stimulation. So being really conscious of how we can access distractions of just having, and I know I'm guilty of this myself, having podcasts or music in the background just to sort of drown out um, or keep us focused, or drown out the voices or some of the processing. But taking time in silence, in solitude, and really allowing yourself to be able to connect inward, and keeping a focus or intention on being able to access your own inner knowledge and wisdom, your own internal guidance system, rather than looking towards the outside world for that, but really taking that time and going within. One thing I feel is really good that can help bring and access some of our ancient knowledge and wisdom is to be able to spend time researching, reading spiritual texts that feel in alignment or connect, that we might have a resonance or a connection with. So looking into things like the real history, human history. I always talk about how the spirit science video on YouTube. So Spirit Science is the channel, and the actual title of the video is the human history. Uh, yeah, human history, I think it is. So if you were to search Spirit Science human history, that video would probably come up. I absolutely love that video. I have a huge resonance as it talks about um, this 12,000 year cycle that we're in, or 25,000 year cycle, and it gives a cartoon version of the history of Lemuria, Atlantis, ancient Egypt, the Essenes, up until present day. So connecting with some of the information like that can be really really powerful to then start to download some of your own knowledge and information. So I highly recommend that if you can find, or even just set out the intention. I think that was how that video found me and others. And that was by the work of Drew Vallow, Melchizedek, primarily based off some of his teachings and books. But even if you were just to set the intention yourself to have information come to you that is prevalent to your own soul's journey, and just see what starts to pop up and arise, and allow yourself to feel into that. And that may not be with any external information. That may be just taking that time in solitude and reflection and asking to bring some of that in. Keeping really active is really good for the solar plexus. So rigorous exercise if you can, things like martial arts, boxing, kickboxing, and of course certain yoga poses can help stimulate the solar plexus chakra. I find that within the solar plexus is a very active chakra. So trying things new, changing your routine, and taking on new experiences is something that is highly desirable within our masculine energy and component, and really changing things up. as well. So have a think about these are just some additional suggestions of things that you can do throughout your week to enhance your experience. And perhaps you have other things in mind that you personally connect or correlate with the solar plexus chakra, that things that you enjoy doing that would help the process of being able to, move through this particular module. All right. How are we going? Take a little pause again. Just don't want to overwhelm with too much information and just allow a space of reflection too of whatever might be coming up as we move through some of this stuff. The Human History movie. That's the title of the one that I would recommend. Okay, so now we're going to go into our first process for this module, which will be the solar plexus clearing and activation. So I'll invite you to get into a comfortable space or position, and we will get going. So just finding a space now where you can relax and get comfortable, whether that be seated or in a lying position, whatever works best for you. And as you do so, just inviting you now to start by just being aware of how your energy feels in the present moment. And just allowing yourself to take a couple of deep breaths. So just gentle inhale and exhale. Allowing yourself to find the gentle and subtle flow. With each inhale, just allowing you to connect with the flow of energy and life force energy, starting to move through your system, through your energy field, and connecting into your body. And just on the exhale, allowing yourself to let go of any excess energy, any tension or stress that you might be holding or have been holding within, just allowing that to dissolve and melt away. Gentle ebbs and flows. And just being really attuned to how your body feels in the moment, how your energy feels, and just making that observation, simple awareness. Noticing how it feels. The new energy coming in with the in-breath as it helps to break up any stagnant or excess energy. You can move and direct that new energy through your system, just gently through the breath. And now, whenever you're ready, I want you to start to bring into your awareness the beautiful life force energy, source energy from above, connects to your highest level of energy and consciousness, or directly into source. As you bring that energy and awareness and connect with it, you start to bring a strand of that energy down through the flow of your breath, calling it, inviting it, bringing it down to start to connect in through the top of the head. As that energy starts to flow through the body, it pours down, allowing that beautiful frequency to start to move, shift and clear whatever you've been holding as it moves down through the energy column, bringing it all the way through, out through the base, out through the soles of the feet, diving all the way into the center of the earth, allowing you to be that clear conduit and channel, the divine source energy to flow through you, connecting source to earth, earth to source. So as that energy dives all the way into the center, it splits into two and starts to cycle back up on the right and the left, connecting into your field, into your toric field, allowing that cyclical motion of that energy start to spiraling all the way back up to its origin point, and then moving down back through, starting to feel that rotation and spin and that beautiful supportive energy as it flows vibrantly through you, knowing that you can adjust the flow to be at a fast pace or a slower moving pace, whatever is right for you. Just feeling that energy work its way through, clearing, shifting, to get a really good connection into your own energy. As we start to bring our awareness into the center, into our solar plexus chakra, connecting into the stomach and that yellow vibration, and just being aware of how it looks or feels in the moment. Inviting this energy as it starts to connect into that space, to slowly and gently start to break down, shift, clear, and dissolve energies that have been held in a lower vibration, dissolving out any mental lack of clarity, disempowerment, any distorted masculine energies, energies that have prevented us from really connecting with our I am presence, our true nature, and the origin, the information of our ancient knowledge and wisdom. Anything that has held a negative projection of our own identity and image, impacting our confidence or self-esteem, and our ability to instigate or move freely and through inspiration, actioning out into the world. Just be aware of any of these patterns, limitations within our mental processing of how we view ourselves, any limitations that have been held within this space that we may have accumulated from the beginning of this lifetime, from other incarnations, or anything that we have held through our paternal ancestral lineage. So giving the space now to clear out these energies, these patterns, loops or cycles, any density or debris. As we break it down and clear it out, we give ourselves now the opportunity to bring it all the way back into a 0 point, space of neutrality, space where we can recreate from this place, this clear space. As we take a couple of deep breaths, really feel into the core of that higher vibration, that higher level solar plexus energy starting to emerge within us. Allowing us now to start to bring online that new vibration, just awaiting for us to connect with it deeply. Allowing new energies to start to come online as we connect deeply with the I am presence, our sense of self and our true nature, our empowered masculine energy, that divine masculine within us. Feeling a sense of strength and empowerment, confidence, feeling confident to move within the physical world and to be divinely guided with our action steps as we connect to our core of our ancient knowledge and wisdom. As we allow that to start to come online, we call in a higher level of that frequency from Source now, guiding it, calling it in, running down through our crown, bringing it into the solar plexus. And as it hits that space, it starts to activate, pulsate, and radiate that beautiful new frequency as it comes online. That sense of empowerment, feeling that right within our core as it starts to expand through our body, through our energy field, into the mental body. As we vibrate at this new level of frequency, we invite new experiences into our reality to reinforce holding our own energy and personal power, being balanced within our masculinity, re-invoking our ancient knowledge, wisdom, and the expression that comes with that as we hold a strong sense of self and who we are in the world. Just feeling that beautiful, expansive energy, feeling it, the sensations running through our body as we activate and acclimate to that frequency. As we slowly, gently now take your time coming back into your breath, allowing yourself to take a couple of deep breaths. And just slowly and gently, when you're ready, allowing yourself to come back into the present moment. Just taking your time whenever you're ready, coming back and opening your eyes. So I'll give you guys just a moment or two just to start to come back, taking your time. And as you come back, if anyone wishes to share anything from their experience, any observations, you're quite welcome to. I'll just give you all a moment because I know sometimes coming back from that, it's like you need a second to catch your breath, reorient yourself. Hope that went well. I could certainly feel a lot of shifting and clearing happening. I do feel very different. Hope that that has oh, okay, awesome. Okay, so someone's just said I entered into a deep state of relaxation when I started to focus on the solar plexus chakra. It started to vibrate. That's cool. Yeah, I could definitely feel that coming through, that very subtle hum or vibration. That's great. That's wonderful. Just giving everyone else just a moment just to come back or share. Okay. Someone said I almost fell asleep. It was more relaxing than I expected. Okay, well that's good. Hope It wasn't intensive, so that's good. It was relaxing. Oh, wonderful. Your time and space, and as we move through this module for the next week, I do recommend to work on connecting with, especially this particular guided process, once a day or twice a day, as you feel guided. You might want to work with the other techniques that we'll be moving through in this module as well, but in particular this one, just so you can start to feel the clearing, the shifts that take place. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so now we're going to move along, and we're going to be having a look now at the divine masculine energy from my vantage point. What is the divine masculine energy? I know that often when we look at things like divine partnership and we focus on the masculine component, or the masculine person, but we're talking about our own masculinity, the masculine energy that we hold. And obviously in module 2, we've covered the sacred or divine feminine energy and how that looks, and how everyone embodies both. So different types of masculine energy. The one that I consider old or outdated, perhaps distorted masculine energy, is one that is quite rigid, as mentioned, distorted, that feels the need to control or is power driven, can be stuck in the need to be right, and driven primarily through intellect. Um, so when we look at the flip side of that, when we look at more of a divine masculine energy or an empowered masculine energy, that's one that holds a frequency of just deep inner knowing and trust, being very self assured, very confident, and one that is easily able to operate through not just logic, but also intuition. So, as we look at our world and the collective, there's many institutions and aspects of our world that is held or ingrained within that more distorted masculine energy template. And I believe that we have witnessed this primarily through the fall of civilizations, such as, I think it goes all the way back to Lemuria. Um, and this is a process that we're moving through collectively to bring back the balance of the empowered masculine and feminine energy. A lot of people talk about, the rise of the divine feminine, but I also think equally we've got to look at the rise of the divine masculine energy that also has been suppressed and controlled within us all. So, of course, bringing these energies back into balance and harmony creates the Trinity energy, or the third energy. And when that is activated, that is a very potent and powerful life force energy that can create or manifest. So the combination of the two, um, the energy, the feminine, and then the mental, the masculine, and creating non-physical into physical. Distorted masculine energy can be very wounded, uncertain, fear-based, have a lot of lack, disempowerment, and uncertainty. But when we look at the empowered masculine, it's trusting, it's being able to take the lead, knowing its place, and being able to work with intuition as well as that knowledge and wisdom, and being quite empowered, self assured, but not in a domineering way. It's in a very balanced natural way. So I see the masculine energy is the one that takes the action steps into the world. So when we're tapping into our divine feminine, it's more of an intuitive process, connecting with the ether or non-physical. And as we can work with balancing and maintaining both, we take our intuition and then we apply that and then take our action steps from that. So you may want to just take a little pause or a moment now just to, we're not going to go into a process similar to module 3, where we worked with the clearing of the ancestral line and then connecting with the feminine energy. You can go back and replay that and apply that to the masculine, of course. It might be, really cool to do so, but just to take a moment now and perhaps just to feel into your own masculinity or your own masculine energy and how that feels or sits or resides within you. I know that sometimes when we're coming from a very disempowered place, that's a time to kind of re-spark and connect with that masculine energy to help us feel supported, safe, and secure to be more overtly out in the world. So just feeling what it feels like to be in that or holding that masculine energy. And I think, as we covered in the last module, often most people hold a more dominant masculine energy because that's just how society has been. And it's, really about being able to bring the balance and the power back into having both in optimal capacity. So just taking a moment, just being able to feel into that energy, what your masculine energy feels like. Does it feel strong and secure, self-assured, or is it a little uneasy? Obviously, this all directly connects in with the solar plexus. So just going to jump along now and look at our own mental process, or the process as we move through the ascension phase, and what the mental process can look like, or at least some of my own observations. Um, and so what I've highlighted is it can be one of the hardest for so many of us. And I think that's just based on how the matrix itself has been created, is highly dominantly focused on our mental conditioning or programming. And so as we start to move through our ascension process, it is a process of unraveling our limiting beliefs, ways of thinking, things that we've accumulated or stored by society, or we've accumulated from childhood, past life memories. And often this can, create a state of mistrust or uncertainty, and certainly disempowerment. So as we go through, shedding or unraveling a lot of these layers and programs, it can be very, very uncomfortable. It's, I find that when we're kind of deprogramming ourselves, a lot of it can really heighten and come up like the dials being switched to full capacity. And that's often when we start to have these repetitive mental looping thoughts or negative self-beliefs as they start to unravel out of our field. Anything that starts to get dismantled will get highlighted and bring our attention and awareness into that. So, as I was mentioning before, directly connecting the solar plexus to our mental process, and our mental body. And as we start to assimilate more light frequency, more of our own original essence starts to come online, it's going to shake or rattle what's no longer in um, vibrational alignment or match to that. So I often associate, it's almost like being in a washing machine. And it's like almost some of these lower level thought patterns and belief systems almost think their way out of the mental body. If you want a visual representation, it's almost like light comes in and it floods and it's like exacerbating like this, and then it pushes out to the surface. So we can be very heightily mentally overstimulated. And I think that also just speaks to the world at large. I think we live in a society, especially right now, where there's just copious amounts of information constantly being bombarded and flooded to us. So that's where having our own discernment and our own knowing of what is right. And I often find that when we go through our ascension process, a lot of everything gets turned on its head. So a lot of what we believe to be true almost gets flipped into the reverse, and it's the opposite. So when we think about that at the world at large, and obviously when we start to awaken to lies and deceptions and things that have been um, corrupt within this world, we can take that as also an internal reflection of some of the lies that we may have been indoctrinated within how we view ourselves and our own limitations. So as we do this process, we allow ourselves to be more in our own divine wisdom, and that is help from the seat of the soul, our own soul wisdom and knowledge. I often say that during these phases, when we're going through a rattling out of old mental conditioning and programming, it's always good to be the observer and try not to engage, because it's like, and I learnt this back when I was working in mental health, and obviously a lot of people struggled. And that was a big topic point that we talked about, was like the mental processing. And one thing that always came up was when we're going through excessive mental looping or patterning that's sort of being played very loudly in our field and in our thoughts, is if we're engaging or trying to fight, it kind of is this futile perpetuation of like we're just feeding more energy into that. So if we can come back into the process of being the observer and not engaging so much with the thoughts, but observing them as they're coming up, and maybe even just qualifying, is that real? Is that true? Is that just a program that has been ingrained within me? Can I let that go, rather than engaging in the mental chatter, is much more productive way of being able to move through the mental process. And sometimes one really good activity that can be helpful is to create a new level of who am I, self-identity, is sitting with pen and paper and just writing I am, and just allowing all the drivel to come out. I am not good enough. I am lazy. I am not intelligent, whatever it is, just allowing through that process of writing and just writing it out, and then leaving space in between. So if there is a lot of limited belief systems around ourselves coming out first and foremost, we can create space underneath to then write in the polarity. So, you know, I'm not good enough. I am good enough. I, I have poor judgment. I have great judgment of myself. Whatever it is, bringing in the opposite, and then writing a new list and working with that over a 21-day period of reflections of affirmations that we can talk to ourselves, and to reprogram our thought process of how we view ourselves can be really empowering, and working with that, especially when you combine that with energy work, it can be really potent. So in this module, we'll be looking at coming up a technique that we can work to unlock some of the unconscious beliefs or processes from the energetic standpoint as we work through this particular module. Oh, okay, so empathy. What is empathy, or being highly sensitive? I think that it is something that we all have, but varying degrees of, depending on our makeup. And as we kind of step forward more and more on our path, we become more highly attuned. We become much more sensitive and empathetic, and as we start to switch on our gifts and abilities. For me, I've always found that the solar plexus is almost like a receiver, um, which pulls in a lot of energy, a lot of information, not necessarily always useful. And it's a place that can get really clogged up really quite easily if we're not paying attention or being able to clear. So if we are sensitive and we're pulling in energy and information, that's where we can be like picking up like a sponge a lot of energy from other people and surroundings, and hold that within our solar plexus. When this occurs, it can really cloud our thoughts, and that's where we can be really unclear within our mind, within our sharpness, within our clarity. And so I want you to reflect now, and, thinking back, if you've ever been around people and you suddenly just feel upset or negative or sick to your stomach, and just observe, you could be fine in one moment and then you could walk into, a store or a cafe, and all of a sudden, when you think about our solar plexus as being a bit of a receptor or receiving energy and information, as we, align energy field, that's where we can be starting to pick up on people's thought processes and patterns. And often we can start to not feel great in the presence of other people. And all of a sudden our energy or our mood kind of shifts, and we can be picking up on things on a much more subtle level than what we bring our conscious level awareness to. And that can, all of a sudden we can go from, this vibration to meow. And often I find that we're generally picking up on how other people feel about themselves, um, or, the greater world at large, potentially. And I noticed this when I went through one of my very first really strong upswings in my ascension process, and my sensitivity came on in a much more pronounced way than it ever had done before. And I know that I was picking up other people's thought processes, or bleeding into or feeling into their mental body, and reading a lot of their thoughts, and subconscious thoughts, which was not a pleasant experience. So it's something to be really aware of. It may not apply to everyone, or it may do on varying degrees, but I can think way back as a child, and how often my moods would swing just based on interactions and being perhaps in a room with a lot of people. And I would instantly just feel sick to my stomach. And as a child, I was always saying, I feel sick, I feel sick. But it was just such a huge accumulation of energy that I was pulling in unconsciously that was kind of buffering in and around my field. So I think that most of us have a high level of sensitivity, empathy, but we dull it down as we get older. And obviously, as we start to go on our ascension pathway, we're unraveling. So we're becoming more heightened, more sensitive. So different types of empathy or sensitivity that we can break down into categories. Clairsentience, so the ability to feel other people's energy and pick up on other people's feelings. Obviously, solar plexus to solar plexus, and that's how I was trained initially when I was developing my psychic abilities. Was when we were to do readings based on clairsentience, we were to click into a person's solar plexus chakra, which not something that I would do these days, but hey, we learn and evolve. So feelings, so picking up on people's mental states. Physically, so taking on elements of people's physical state of well-being or lack thereof well-being. I know that this is something that I learned, living with my mum as growing up as a teenager. I would physically feel, my mum had problems with her knee, with her leg, and I would wake up some days on days that I was much more sensitive, and I would have physical pain in my body, which was a mirroring in reflection of what my mum was physically going through. And so I've noticed that incrementally, especially through my work, I can physically feel into another person's body to feel where their physical ailments are as a part of when I'm doing work on helping clear. But I think we all have the capacity to do this from time to time. So if we're having pronounced symptoms that just come out of nowhere, sometimes it's really good to be able to feel into the physical body and ask, first and foremost, is this mine? And then if we get a yes no response and work well at working yes no responses, asking who does this belong to, and then maybe getting a name or a visual face. So mental, so picking up, as I was mentioning, picking up on other people's thought processes, which is obviously also known as telepathy. And I believe that we're moving into a world where telepathy will be one of our primary states of communication. So as we all increase in our sensitivity, having telepathy can be very discombobulating initially. And that's why I think it's a gentle, slow, steady process so we can acclimate, to being attuned to these sorts of things. I've talked to many people who've had out of body or off planet heightened spiritual experiences where they're being sort of cast into societies where telepathy is the main form of communication. And when they're in a room with multiple beings, it's almost like a mind merge. It's very hard to get the sense or indication of where your thoughts end and others begin. So I think that we all have a natural oriented telepathy. And so it's just being aware when we're in the physical presence of others or thinking what other people are thinking of us, are we picking up on their thought process and patterns? And of course, the earth too. So being an earth empath, being in sync with the planetary changes and the influxes, such as earthquakes, geomagnetic storms, space weather, solar winds, the electromagnetic field, and of course the Schumann resonance. So I remember as a personal share being told very young by a psychic that I was very in sync with the Earth's changes and the shifts and vibrations, and that would only that would only increase as I got older, and that, I could wake up with a really strong headache and not realize that it was because there was an earthquake. And that's certainly something that I've experienced over many, many years. It's not as bad now, as I've worked to sort of balance and embody more frequency in more of a solidified way. However, going through turbulent changes and upswings in sensitivity can impact when the Earth's going through different shifts. So just, I guess, a couple of things to be conscious and aware of. So now we're going to go into the next process. We're going to go through just a nice, gentle, well, maybe gentle, maybe not, removing mental programs to reclaim and unlock our inner personal power. So what I will ask you to do is to just find yourself in a comfortable and relaxed position, and then we will get started. So just finding a space where you can sit or lie comfortably, a place where you'll be uninterrupted. As I invite you now to start to relax and get into a space to be able to connect with your breath. So just gentle inhale and exhale. Allowing yourself to find the natural rhythm of your breath as you connect with your body, inviting just gentle influxes of energy as you take a deep breath in and just slow, steady, gentle, relax or letting go on the exhale. And just becoming acutely aware of where your body and energy sits in this moment right now. When you're ready, I'm going to invite you to bring in, almost to stream down, almost a cord or a vacuum or a screen, an energy that can help screen and detect and work with scanning in and around your energy, your mental body. So it may be a light or a device. Comes down, just hovering just above the top of the head. And as we work with this scanning or clearing tool, just allowing ourselves to set the intention that as we run this down gently through the body, we give ourselves the ability to highlight or to scan into any negative programming, limitations within our thought process, anything that we've picked up that doesn't necessarily belong to us or is helpful. Maybe thoughts about ourselves, lack or limitations, maybe how we view our lives or the world at large, whatever filters that have been placed within our energy field that have come in from conscious or subconscious programming through the mind, through the mental body, and just giving ourselves the space to recognize them as they wish to be made apparent, to surface and to rise, almost like forms within our field, almost as we set the intention or command for them to be brought forward of what no longer serves us. Working with the breath as we start to scan in and around our mental body, through our body, and just paying attention to what starts to arise as this light and energy scans through, to pull out, to highlight, or to unlock any programs or conditioning. As they come in thought forms, as they start to almost unplug, may see them as cords starting to unravel themselves or disconnect, and may come in memory form, visual, and just be aware of how they represent, giving that space to almost unravel or disentangle from any limitation, letting go of false versions of programming yourself. Taking a moment, allowing those energies to unravel, disconnect, and completely dissolve. You're working with the energy of a vacuum or cleansing, just allowing them to release or be transmuted transmuted through that clearing and releasing back to source. Now, when you're ready, just calling in the frequency of sun or solar energy. You might connect with sun or the grand central sun, source of divine light energy. As we call upon this powerful, potent energy, bringing that into our field, focusing in on our stomach and solar plexus. And as that energy starts to come in and merge with us, it starts to unlock our inner knowing, our personal power, strength, and starts to unlock the keys and codes to our own inner soul knowing, our remembrance. Allowing that energy to deeply merge within us, giving us that strength, the power to be able to unlock what has already or always been within us, connecting or being able to deeply connect with our own divine masculine energy and strengthen that deep internal knowledge of who we truly are, the power and potential that we hold. As we bring this in, it starts to activate deep within us, allowing us to access more fully that energy, that strength and personal power, accessing higher levels of consciousness and awareness, memories. As we hold that energy strong and ripple it out through our energy field, allowing ourselves to maintain that strength within us. Just feeling into what that energy feels like and how we can access that and bring that more into the world. And as you do now, just allowing yourself to take your time, gently, easily, giving yourself the space Start to come back into your breath. Coming back into your awareness. Bringing back all that you have gained. Bringing that back with you. As you take your time now, slow and steady, gentle breaths, allowing yourself to return. When you're ready, just opening your eyes. Okay, so just coming back now, taking your time. I would love to hear if anyone has anything that they wish to share, how they went, or anything that came up. Give each of you just a few moments. Hopefully you've all come back. You might even want to just write down anything that's come up around that. Okay. So we're going to take this time now just to move along, coming into our next topic of what I would like to call divine action or divine inspiration to action. So as we know, in the old paradigm of the old world, the way of creating can be very, very forceful and trying hard, pushing to create a desired action or outcome. We have to work hard to obtain results. This can come in with a lot of overthinking, planning, control for outcomes for ourselves and others, and that's just not how it works as we're moving into a new paradigm or a new earth. It's in fact quite everything kind of gets flipped on its head and is quite the opposite. So as we spoke about a little bit in the last module, about accessing our intuition and then being able to apply what um, what we receive through intuition into action, rather than doing what we think we should do, but really being led by our soul, by our divine knowledge, and being able to take guided action where our intuition comes into play. So most people, when it comes to accessing intuition or guidance, unfortunately, most of the time that's where it stops. Because quite often working with intuition can be very abstract, very out of the box. and very opposed or opposite to how we would normally operate into the world. So, people can get these intuitive hunches or intuitive guidance to, and this is within reason, of course, but to take some sort of action. And it feels a little bit silly or stupid. So their mental blocks get in the way and they stop. They don't actually follow through with that guided or divine action. So this is where our programming, our limited belief systems of what is possible, and overthinking things unnecessarily, because of past experiences and limitations, can really get in the way. So this is where we have to be able to dive deep, and whole new level of trust needs to come into play. So this is where we can trust our intuition and then be divinely led and then follow through with those actions or implementation of those actions. So really trusting the knowledge and the information that we're being given, and then move that out into the world. So that the masculine energy is the action-oriented energy, to be empowered through our actions as well as our thoughts. So on the negative side, often what can lead or people go into is, before placing the action out into the world, they go through this whole mental playing out. What if goes wrong? What if da da da? And often that's where people get tripped up or get stuck and not following through, is they get very caught up in stagnation because of the limitations within the mental process. So think about, as you move forward from today onwards into your week, and think about perhaps where you can be ready to take on divinely led action, where perhaps in the past you haven't followed through, and you can start to apply new ways of, even if it's just a little thing, each day, of being able to follow through. A lot of people will spend the time in going into process of meditation or self-inquiry of, what is it that I can do to further my path? What is my soul's mission? Why am I here? And we get these intuitive hits and guidance of, like, like I've mentioned before, I think in module 1, go to the beach, where I was working on how to open up more abundance in my life, and meditating on that and getting the intuitive hit, go to the beach. And so all the limiting beliefs come up of, well, how's that going to help? The old paradigm way of forcing or creating, I should be out there, selling my product, meeting people, going to meetings, yada yada yada, but my intuition telling me to go to the beach, like, that's backwards. And I could have sat for hours, in fighting that, or trying to pick it apart and trying to intellectualize why that would make sense, where it doesn't make sense. We have to follow through, because by following through, I was able to get myself into a nicer resonance, and that was where the abundance started to flow through. But in other circumstances, it could be that you're trying to open up new pathways and ventures, and just by going and taking the steps of the guided action, allows you to go down to the street and bump into a certain person, or see a flyer, inviting you to go and participate in something that you are interested in. So we really need to follow through with our divinely guided action, and not just taking in the information of our intuition, but actually following through. That's where the magic lies, even if it doesn't make sense. So going back into understanding our sensitivity, I think we covered a lot of this, but just to go back as a nice segue or lead into our final process or this module. Of course, as we become lighter in our energy field, our frequency becomes stronger and clearer, and we go through series of activations we become heightened sensitivity to environments, people, places, and things. And that heightened level of sensitivity can create energetic overwhelm if we're not careful. We can become very sensitive to not only other people's energies, but things like light, sound, because everything is made up of vibration. So as a vibration is accessing higher levels of consciousness, the external world that doesn't necessarily match that yet, as we're changing within, it takes a while for that energy to reverberate out to change our reality, if you will. So we go through this phase of being uncomfortable where our internal sensitivity and the external hasn't met its match. And of course, if we don't have a strong claim over our energy, we can get very, very distracted, pulled off in so many different directions. And that's where we're not just connecting with our own intuition and our, divinely led action, where if we're in too many energies coming within our field, we can sort of be pulled here, there, and just in this place of inaction, which I think we can all relate to at different parts of our life, where our energy is sparse, and then we're not sort of engaged in focusing or condensing into our own activities, but just being sort of, pulled off course, if you will. Of course, when we merge with other people's energy, that of a partner or a child or a sibling, a friend, we can get pulled around, and also that works with the greater energy of the collective. So, importance of claiming our personal power and having a strong hold over our energy field can really change things for us in a positive way. So instead of being sort of pulled in all directions, we're coming into our own, holding our energy, and we can ripple a positive frequency out in to create a different reality experience of our own reflection. So for many of us, walking through this life can be really challenging, as at times how it was put to me. I remember many years ago when I was working and training in mental health, I was going through what I didn't recognize at the time was I was going through a very rapid acceleration of my internal world. And I was becoming, I think that's why we go into hibernation phases and go into hermit mode throughout various stages of our ascension process, because it is necessary while we're going through so much internal change. The external doesn't match, so we're kind of buffering or keeping ourselves contained a little bit as a protective mechanism until our energy comes online a lot stronger and we can be influential. So during those times, we can be like energetic sponges. And the phrase that I was told was, you can choose, you can be the sponge or you can be the lighthouse. So the lighthouse is obviously having a strong hold over the energy and emulates a frequency that can uplift. So the clearer our energy channel is, and the more awareness we have on our own energy focus, we can make better choices for ourselves. We're not being pulled off course because of other people's energetic influence. When we know or have conscious awareness that we're being impacted by external energies, we can bring ourselves back to ourselves much quicker, and that can create a lot more productivity within our own personal journey. Okay. Oh, okay, so just taking all that in for a moment. Hmm. So I truly believe that sensitivity is our superpower. We may not see it like that while we're developing and understanding that, but in essence, in true essence, that's what I believe it is. So when we have a better understanding of what is our own, what belongs to us, and what belongs to others, we are less influenced by other people. and society in general. When we can start to use our sensitivity as receivers of energy and information, we can use that to our advantage to be able to empower ourselves and our relationship with others. So, for example, if we are switched on to the fact that we can feel or sense into other people's well-being, maybe their thoughts or their emotional state, we can use that to our advantage by having, open, honest communication and knowing how other people feel in that moment. If they're starting to feel retracted or uncomfortable, we can change our approach so that we can maintain better connectivity and relationships with others. It also helps us cultivate more compassion when we are aware of other people, and that can give a very supportive ground to nurture and to be compassionate towards ourselves and to hold space for others. Making choices and decisions that are in our highest good and alignment with our intuition. When we empower ourselves to reclaim our own sensitivity, this is where our psychic and intuitive gifts can come online and be there as I believe they're always designed to be. We can read the world of energy and intuition to help us navigate better rather than taking things at verbal or face value. If we're feeling in or reading into the energy, we can actually navigate through the world a lot easier. And as I mentioned before, having a greater level of productivity and divinely guided action rather than being pulled around by external influences. And my personal favorite, if we can use our sensitivity to create from what we feel is needed in the world based on what we read, we can then create the remedy. So, a bit like, in my work, if I can read into the collective and what's happening in the world, I can create content that is going to be best help soothe or to, bring solutions into the world. And I think that's what we're all designed here to do in some capacity. So if we're using our sensitivity as its superpower and being able to use it to tune into things and then to sort of get ahead of the curve, to be able to use it in positive ways, whether that's in direct relation to ourselves, our empowering our relationships, or the greater world at large. We're going to move into our final process for this module, which is what I will call feeling into other energies or other energies. It should be plural. As I mentioned in the beginning of this module, originally it was just opening up to connect into one other person's energy field just to feel the difference. But I'm going to extend this process and do that based on inviting an external energy and also the collective energy so that we can really get a sense of where our energy lies. It starts and, or ends, I should say, and where other energies begin. And that we can always come back in and hold our own energy stronger, which gives us a greater sense of self and personal empowerment. So I'll invite you now just to find a space where we can get comfortable and we can go through this activity, and then we'll wrap it up with the Q&A. So taking some time now just to find a safe and gentle space where you can connect in with your body and with your breath. And of course, getting in connection with your energy field and how it feels right now in this moment. So opening up and starting to take a couple of deep level breaths, just gentle inhale and exhale. As you follow the rhythm of your breath, just getting a sense and awareness of where your energy sits in the moment. Is it out wide? Is it in or kind of contracted? Just getting a sense of how it feels, where it sits, perhaps getting a sense of color, frequency that you're currently vibrating at. You may want to spin or rotate it. Just really just feeling into how your energy feels in this very moment. You might feel a sense of peace, relaxation, or inner connectedness. So you might just get a sense of the sphere that your energy resides within. And the next thing I'm going to invite you to do is become aware of an external sphere of energy, just on the periphery of where your energy field ends. This is an invitation to connect with another person. So you might have another person in mind, someone that you know. And as you get a sense of the awareness of their energy just out in the periphery, we extend the invitation for them to step within our energy field. And as they do, just start to pay attention to any subtle awarenesses of how your energy changes. Perhaps you feel physical tension in the body. Different sensations of energy. You may pick up on different emotions or thought processes. Just becoming acutely aware of how the texture or the quality of the energy changes when you're inviting someone else within your energetic space. As you just hold it there just for a few moments, you may feel a sense of incompatibility, perhaps. It may feel grating or jarring, or it might feel soothing, depending on the individual. However it comes through, just being the observer. Once you have come into that awareness of how that feels, just asking that person now just to step out of your energetic space. Feel, sense, or see them shift out of your sphere, allowing yourself now just to come back into your own energy. If you want, you may just pull in a white or a platinum energy just to purify and neutralize any residual that may have been left as you come back in to your own space. So now when you're ready, I want you to open up or connect in with another sphere of energy that sits just outside of your energy space. This is the energy of the collective consciousness. So whenever you're ready now, just allowing yourself to open up and invite in that energy into your space, just for a moment. Noticing how your energy shifts and changes. Noticing what feelings or sensations might be coming up. Notice how that feels in your body or your mental awareness, perhaps. Potentially any heightened emotions. Noticing anything that comes up that may be relative to you, perhaps. Or is it just an awareness exercise? Whenever you're ready now, just asking that energy to step back outside your field, creating some distance and space. As you come back in, just into your own energy. You may want to flush through, just bringing in a light or energy just to clear out any residue that may be lingering. Just come back in as you start to feel just back into your own energy. As you do, you may feel the need just to place an energy of a cocoon in and around you, just to hold and contain your energy so that it is strong, stable, and uninfluenced by external energies. As you start to feel back into your body, your energy, and take some slow and gentle breaths. Take slow and gentle breaths. Start to come back into space. Just taking your time. Whenever you're ready, allowing yourself to come back and open your eyes. Okay, so just coming back, just taking your time, and just offering space now if anyone wanted to share any insights or anything that came up from that process. Hmm. Moments. Okay, so someone's just said that was so clear the difference. Yeah. So very clear cut when you do that process. And I think it's a really good process or a tool to have in your back pocket, um, to start your day, or if you're struggling being able to make sense of energies that you're perhaps moving through, and just discerning, and when you can just stop and just move through that, there is a very, very clear difference. So it helps to come back um, very quickly within your own energy, especially with the collective. Like someone was holding a boot on the back one. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So I think it's really that technique, especially for creatives or those who are content creators or work in any sort of capacity. When we're talking about creating the remedy, that can be a really good indicator to kind of feel into the temperature, if you will. um, and it's also good to decipher what is being processed through your system that may not necessarily be yours, and to, yeah, come back and hold a strong center. Yeah. Space if anyone else is wanting to share. Have to, it might be something that you just want to journal down yourself, your own process. Well, I know we're kind of running in overtime a little bit. Yeah, but we'll we'll just keep moving on into wrapping up with the Q&A. So just opening up the forum now if there are any questions or observations or anything that wishes to be shared in and around the solar plexus chakra, the mental body, the empathy, um, sensitivity, the divine masculine energy, and of course, yeah, program conditioning, what we've cultivated or what we've gone through in this module is, I guess, a snapshot overview of all the different aspects. So as you're getting probably in-depth understanding now how intricate and in-depth our energetic system is and how much it relates to our life and all the different components within that. I'm going to stop sharing now. Hello, everybody. Just while we give everyone time, if there is any questions that come up or anything that wishes to be shared, just want to thank you all so much for coming on this journey of self-mastery and and going through this process. I think it's a very sacred process, and I truly honor you giving me the reins to help facilitate this. And I know it's my greatest gift to help people move through their own process, just to give additional tools and experiences of how we can master our lives through our energy process. As we come into completion now of module 3, solar plexus, mental body, we will now be moving forward into the higher chakra system, the higher frequencies, and looking forward to connecting and coming back into module 4, where we'll be connecting with the heart chakra and the astral body. So thank you so much for joining and participating, for those who have been here on the live, and of course for those watching on the replay. Just want to thank you and look forward to hearing about your experiences as you move through module 3. Thank you.